Hey, everybody, it's Friday. It's Jim and Matt. We're a little early, but that's because we have a Breeders' Cup special coming up later. Fred York will be here. He'll give you all the information you need to know about tomorrow's super races at Del Mar in Southern California. A beautiful, beautiful race course and the best day of horse racing, if you're a horse racing fan, is always the Breeders' Cup. So that's coming up at 3. And so we're kind of sneaking in here for our for the lunchtime crowd. Matthew and I are here, and Matthew, you got a bone to pick with the four-letter network.
I do. ESPN is driven me up a wall with this latest dispute with YouTube TV and taking their channels off the air. And it's a game where ESPN doesn't have to bend their knee to anybody. They in effect kind of have a monopoly, especially on the SEC right now, because they're not incentivized to move off of. If they want YouTube TV to pay a number, then they're not incentivized to move off that number. Like there's nothing that YouTube TV necessarily can offer ESPN that's like, yeah, we'll give you some leeway in the number here because you're bringing us this. That's not the way it works. Heck, ESPN wants you to pay for their subscription service so you can use their app as opposed to paying for somebody else to watch the same stuff that you could get on their app. So why would they give YouTube TV a good number or anything like that? They're not incentivized to do so. And then they go out there and they do this social media tour with all of their biggest names, Scott Van Pelt, Mike Greenberg. They both did hits on it. And they're like, hey, we're currently in a dispute with such and such. If you want to keep your networks, go to keepmynetworks.com and let YouTube TV know how much you would like to continue seeing this ESPN programming on their service. And it's like you are the bad guys. You're the ones that are driving this issue right now. And then you're sitting there like, look at what YouTube TV is doing to us. Oh, they're trying to take us away from you. Come pay for our service instead.
Yeah, it's they've done it on cable for years. They'll go to Comcast, they'll go to Spectrum, they'll go to Cox, they'll go to all the big cable operators. And it started off at ESPN was at $5, right? Per sub. Now think about this. If you've got $5 coming in per sub and you got 100 100 million subs, that's a lot of money every month. Okay. Well, now we're down to 40 around 64 to 65 subs, on traditional cable. Then you've got, as you say, with regards to YouTube TV, you've got Sling, and you've got Fubo, and you've got a few other groups where ESPN is taking the same cable model and saying, now we want you to pay $7. And you're like, if you're YouTube TV or any of the others or cable, at that point, you're saying, wait a minute. If I pay you $7 and, and you set a new standard, then NBC and others are going to come over here and say, wait a minute, you just gave ESPN $7 and we're giving you the programming for $5 or $4, right? They're going to want to increase. Okay. Which will then take your, YouTube TV and make it, instead of, it's going to increase by 10, 15, as much as $20. But ESPN, with the app that they're trying to get right now, $30, they're doing a one-time little, deal where you can get Disney, Hulu, and ESPN with the app for $30 a month. Okay. That's twice as much. I'm sorry, that's almost 2.5 times as much as Netflix and some of the others. And they're giving you a great deal more content. I mean, look at Prime. Prime's giving you a ton of content for the price that you save. Okay, Peacock and Paramount Plus, same thing. ESPN's going to break away next year and say, if you want us, it'll cost you $30.
Yeah.
And I don't think, frankly, as much as I like and enjoyed working with ESPN and know a lot of the guys that are still there, there's no way in hell I'm going to pay $30 for ESPN. It's just, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah. I like when I was growing up, I thought very fondly and really enjoyed watching Sports Center, loved ESPN. That was like in my young mind. I was like,
Sure.
this is where I want to get. I want to get to ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And now what I feel like it's turned into when I think of ESPN, I think of like a money grab and clickbait, because it feels like a lot of their sports coverage, they try to go for the best clickbait title, and they're going, in terms of their programming and everything they do, they're going for as much money as they can possibly gouge from every person that consumes their content. It just feels like they've lost everything that they used to be.
They've lost their direction, and it's some of it is something that they have tactically done. Some of it is what they feel the market is now going after, and some of it is because Disney needs them to make money. Which is more the latter than the former. I will tell everybody out there, if you want to go back to the old ESPN type days of just sitting down and watching entertaining sports, reporting, and also just good, honest, conversational talk show type stuff, go download the CBS Sports HQ app. It's free. It's not particularly well. I mean, it's not as slick as sports, as ESPN. It's not, but it is entertaining.
Yeah,
and it is, for free. You get a hell of a lot of content, and they cover a lot more sports on there than ESPN does. And I don't, nothing against Stephen A. and all the other guys, Chris Russo, all those guys. None against any of them. I'm tired of them. I only watch ESPN for one thing, the sport. If a game is on that I want to watch, I'm watching it. I'll watch it on ESPN. If, on the other hand, and this is something that a lot of people don't know. SEC, even basketball, SEC, ACC, and all of the conferences they have, their contracts require them to produce those games. So if you're watching a Georgia baseball game, that's produced by Georgia. So it's not costing ESPN a dime to produce that game. The only person they're paying occasionally would be the announcers. Yeah. So you're watching anything on the ESPN network, with the exception of the big time college football games and some of the big time college basketball games, those are produced by ESPN. Everything else is not. You watch a volleyball game, that's University of Georgia is doing it. You watch your gymnastics, University of Florida is doing it. It's who's ever hosting it. That's where you're getting your content. Now, if you're one of the, if you're an American Conference or Sun Belt or what do you call it, the MAC or something like that, that's all 100% produced, except for the national games. In other words, if it's on ESPN or ESPN2, they're producing it. But the rest of it, all the TV games that they're doing, ESPN Plus games, those are all produced by the universities. So where's, they're giving the conference money, absolutely, no question. But the money goes to the football and the basketball.
Yeah.
and more football than basketball.
Yep.
So, at the end of the day, the conferences are getting their money, but the quality of the content that you're getting on some of these ESPN Plus games, you're wondering, who the hell's doing this?
Yeah, no, there have been some times where I've tuned into like some SEC Network Plus stuff,
Mm-hmm.
really more in relation to Georgia basketball and the
Mm-hmm.
some of the lower level games that they've had over the recent years.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they'll come out of timeouts and like that camera, like they'll be in a weird shot, or you're getting
Right.
bad audio, or like you come back and a camera's like swinging you across the floor,
Right.
set shot. So yeah, it's definitely questionable
Yeah.
on the production front at times.
Yeah. And you want, at the end of the day, all you really want is you want to sit down and watch your favorite team play.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be a network produced, $500,000 production
No.
football game, but at least give me something that, and by the way, it's, I, I have no problem with ESPN Plus because they're they're giving jobs to young, up and coming broadcasters who probably wouldn't have gotten a shot anywhere else.
Yes.
So 100% on board with that. 100% on board with the fact that young guys and young ladies are getting their opportunity to become production people and learning producing and directing, and that's all fantastic as well. So I'm not throwing shade in that regard, but if you're asking me to pay $30 a month, I'm expecting a little bit more than what I'm getting in that regard. So we'll see. These are usually brinkmanship things, right? They take it down to the last second and try to figure out a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't, though, and sometimes they'll go without. And YouTube is like Amazon and like Apple and those guys. Eventually, they've got much more money than the networks.
Yeah.
And as things begin to swing in the streaming direction, the biggest fear ESPN has is that the streamers will start spending real money.
Yeah.
And there was a thing that happened a couple months ago. It didn't really make a lot of noise. The NFL, as we all know, has a package of games that the NFL Network has that they're, that they float out there, the 9:30 games.
Yep.
Well, the National Football League wants to put that in a package and they want to sell it. And they want to sell it to a streamer. So, they kind of tested the waters and say, who's interested, who's not. And the usual suspects were interested. Netflix was interested, so was Amazon, so was Apple, so was YouTube. And all of a sudden, Netflix comes up and says, wait a minute. You know what? I'd be interested in taking the Fox Sunday afternoon package or the CBS Sunday afternoon package. And all of a sudden, I guarantee you the presidents of those sports networks basically ran to the bathroom to throw up, because there is no way, if the NFL wants money, which they get tons of it to begin with, but if the NFL says, you know what, CBS and NBC, ESPN, all of my little partners here, the bottom line's the bottom line. If they're willing to outbid Fox or CBS for a package, or for that matter, how about ESPN loses Monday Night Football? Okay, which could happen.
Yep.
And because Netflix could flip you're also talking about worldwide brands here. So in other words, ESPN, is it a worldwide brand? Yes, they sub-license their content to other countries, but
Mhm.
they're not. It's not like Apple, where Apple has, where Apple flips the switch to show a baseball game or a soccer match,
Mhm.
and now F1, because they got F1 away from ESPN.
Yeah.
So you get F1 on there. You can watch F1 all around the world on Apple TV, because that Apple's a worldwide brand.
Yeah.
Netflix is a worldwide brand.
Yep.
So is Prime. So
Yeah.
so the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA are all looking at them and going, "This is our future." Is
Mhm.
ESPN our future? Maybe, maybe not. But and that's where CBS with Paramount Plus and NBC with their situation um, is working on ways to stay competitive. But ESPN is not the worldwide leader in sports if one of these if Prime or Apple or Netflix want to do it. And one last thing about Apple TV, there was a dispute on Apple TV when they first got the deal with the NFL. Remember, they took away the Sunday ticket.
Mhm.
All right. They wanted to give the Sunday ticket games free to those who subscribe to uh, YouTube TV. And the NFL went crazy
That.
and said, no, 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 you got to sell it in the package.
Yeah.
So, regardless of the fact that they were willing to spend $100 million more than what DirecTV spent for it, and they wanted to give it because that way they
Mhm.
figured, all right, we can get subscribers if we go ahead and literally give people this as a value add.
Yeah.
Because YouTube again has far more money than any of the other these other networks. So
Yep.
it is what it is.
Yep.
So you got problems with ESPN, but you got a little bit of a issue with the folks at LSU too.
I do. I do. Yeah, we're slowly working towards the actual football being played this weekend and things that I'm frustrated about. But
Mhm.
yeah, the scene or situation that's unfolding in Baton Rouge right now is insane, wild, shouldn't be happening. I wrote about it. It was actually as I was writing my article about Brian Kelly, and really less about Brian Kelly and more about the hiring process of college coaches right now.
Excuse me, just shameless plug. You can read it right now on Sports Talk Florida.
Hmm. Yep, under the college tab. But it's something that I was going through, and I have all these different criteria of why the college coaching system is broken. And I get down to these committees, and I'm talking
Hmm.
about like too many cooks in the kitchen. And when I get to that part in the story as I'm writing it, boom, Jeff Landry has done a press conference on what was it? I think it was Wednesday
Yeah.
evening that he did the press conference. He does a press conference Wednesday evening, says Scott Woodward is not hiring the next head coach, said he'd rather let President Trump head a committee and pick a head coach because he likes to pick winners. What is in God's name is Jeff Landry doing involved with the LSU head coaching search? And also, just because he's been spewing it every time he's gotten the chance, whether that be Twitter, behind a microphone, whatever. He's like, I'm not letting, like, we're changing the way that LSU is going to do a contract with a head coach. Bad, because that's got to be a sport wide thing, not just an LSU thing. If you want to change contracts, it's got to be something that's pretty much like universally agreed upon, because right now that's not where your coaching market's at. So if you want a high level coach, you're going to have to pay high level prices. But he says they're not going to do that because these taxpayers have to foot the bill for Brian Kelly's $53 million buyout. And while I get that is how the contract is structured, 100%, if you go look at the verbiage of the contract, that's exactly the way that it reads. Is that, it's a publicly funded university, yada yada, that it looks like they would be on the bill. When they fired Brian Kelly, the initial report said, one donor has already stepped forward to foot the majority of the bill. Donors cover these bills. Donors covered the bill when you fired at Coach O, and they're going to cover the bill again when you fire Brian Kelly. He's just using this as some kind of like political ploy or talking point to be like, look at what I'm doing for the people of Louisiana. That's not true at all, not even remotely true. He stuck his nose so far up into LSU athletics that they fired Scott Woodward. Scott Woodward's a good AD. Aside from football, which I'm going to give you a hint. I know it's not up to LSU standards. It hasn't been that bad. Their other sports are thriving. He hired Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson has been one of, if not the best coach in NCAA baseball over the past few years since his hiring. He hired Kim Mulkey. She brought a title to LSU in women's basketball.
Right.
And you go back, and I read Ross Dellinger's piece at Yahoo.com or Yahoo Sports. I can't remember what it was.
Yahoo Sports.
Yeah. Ross Dellinger's piece, it just kind of chronicling the like how interwoven LSU athletics and and Louisiana's government can be. This is another one of those cases. Supposedly, Jeff Landry had it out for Scott Woodward and wanted him out. But Scott Woodward is an LSU guy. That's where he went to school. He's done a really good job, and he cites his 2 misses. But his 2 misses came from the correct philosophy. Like when it was a philosophy that he built at Washington when he hired Chris Peterson, which, by the way, was a home run when he hired him at Washington. And then you go and you get Jimbo Fisher. Yeah, it didn't work out, but guess what? When Jimbo Fisher left A&M, left for A&M, it sent shockwaves. Everybody was like, we didn't think this was possible. Now you're having to foot the bill, and the same thing happened with Brian Kelly, but he was a big swing guy. He was going to take big swings, and that's what LSU wants is a big swing. So it's another one of these examples of there are too many cooks in the kitchen because Jeff Landry does not have a background in college athletics. He does not have a background in football. He does not know what it takes to run a football head coaching search. He has no idea. He just stuck his nose in the fire because he didn't like Scott Woodward and claimed they were footing a bill. It's nothing. It's baseless. He's lying to everybody in Louisiana, but he's doing it because they're upset about the football team, so he can get away with it.
Well, Landry's the governor of the state of Louisiana. If he cared as much about the people of LSU and Louisiana as he does himself, then this is more political than it is reality. And I'll tell you what it is going to do, though. What it will do, as you said, is you think I'm taking that job at LSU?
No.
I don't want that job. I don't want to be micromanaged by the damn governor of the state of Louisiana. I mean, he was the night they lost the football game, Saturday night.
Yep.
He went out there and he was calling for the head of Brian Kelly.
Yep.
So he did, as you said, as much as anybody on that planet, LSU's coach was fired by the governor of the state.
Yep. He has so much control over their athletic department, just based on, he appoints the board of trustees. Like he appoints the members of the board. I think he's set to appoint another 4 in this next coming year. So he really has the power over that board of trustees. And the other thing that I don't get about Jeff Landry has no LSU ties. There's nothing. He's tied to the state of Louisiana, but he didn't go to LSU. There's nothing about LSU that draws Jeff Landry in other than the people's interest in Louisiana. This is fully, and I don't get into politics. I don't enjoy it. But what really angers me more than anything when it comes to politics is when people insert their politics into my sports.
Right.
This is not your platform to make your political statement. I don't care. I'm here to watch football. And I know that some people it's probably not their favorite stance in the world, but it's a stance that I have. Keep it out, Jeff Landry. And I think for the good of LSU football, keep it out. Because if he continues to make this such a big issue and creates more of a mess at LSU, I'll tell you the number one thing that won't get you reelected in the state of Louisiana, and that's if you burn that LSU football program to the ground, which seems to be what he's on a fast track to doing.
Well, there is such a thing as what do they call it? Shoot, the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
They're we talk about the football team. I guarantee you, if he continues this diatribe, that there's going to be a hell of a lot of basketball players, baseball players, and other people in the Olympic sports who are going to say, do I want to be involved at a university that literally is taking a political stance?
Yep.
Because you just said, and he said it, that he'd rather have President Trump do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who should be picking the head football coach at LSU.
Yeah.
No more than Tommy Tuberville should be a senator in the United States Senate.
Yep.
You should do what you know what you do to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just nuts.
Yeah.
And it will cost LSU potential athletes in not just football, but many other sports. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see people heading for that transfer portal in other sports because they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up to be involved in a political situation.
Yep.
Every time it happens, like something like that happens, the people who pay for it aren't him. Okay.
Oh.
It's the players and the student athletes. They'll go out there and they'll get booed. Okay. So when they go on the road, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. And I've seen it happen, with DeSantis in Florida. I've seen it happen with other governors who, they kind of stick their nose in these things. And it ends up burning the university they stick their nose into. And if you got a strong board of regents, they'll say, look, governor, step back, please, because otherwise it's going to hurt. But when you appoint the board of regents, I'm pretty sure they're not going to argue with them.
Nope.
But that goes to the point of who handles now finding the coach at LSU.
Yeah, it's that board. He said the board was going to create a committee, which, unbeknownst to Jeff Landry, Scott Woodward had already started creating a committee, him and whoever their assistant AD was, at the time. I'm assuming that he still is there because I didn't see anything about his firing. But they had already started building a committee when he came out and said, well, the board's going to build a committee. And one of the board members said, it's news to me. like he was unaware that this was the direction that Jeff Landry was going. And yeah, I think it's good. I think governors use the college athletics, specifically in the South, but I think governors tend to use college athletics as a way to reach more people and reach a different audience. It's fine. I can tell you, being, living in the state of Georgia my entire life, being from it, that right now, the way things go, Governor Brian Kemp is a Bulldogs fan, but for everything that I've ever seen or heard or known, that's pretty much all he is. He's not extremely hands-on, at least in terms of like hiring coaches and stuff like that. He lets athletics and politics be separate, which is good. So it can be a fine tool that you can use to build your platform. I'm not upset if you go to a game or something like that, just because Jeff Landry didn't have roots. What I have a problem with is him essentially taking over a university and their entire athletic department, seemingly in what feels like a bit of a hostage situation.
Right. Well, I mean, there are companies, CSA Search and Consulting, Turnkey ZGR, CAA. I mean, these are companies that Parker Executive Search. These are companies that are hired by universities because they're professional vetters of guys who may one day be a head coach, at your university for
Mhm.
whatever you need, football,
Yep.
basketball, whatever. That's what their job is. And most of them are former athletic directors. Some of them are former, general managers in professional sports. They hire people who know what a good coach looks like.
Yep.
They don't leave it to a board to come, to do the interviewing,
Yeah.
and it becomes complex. Now, for years, if you look at it, right, the let's go to Penn State for a moment, okay? Back in the day, when he was there, Joe Paterno was the highest paid person, making more money than the governor of the state of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
That money didn't come from the state of Pennsylvania.
No.
Okay, it never has, it never will. Okay,
Nope.
that's a line item. All right, it's technically, if you look at Alabama. All right, let's go to Alabama for a second. Go to Alabama, and for years it would have said that Nick Saban's base contract of, I think it was like $700,000. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Saban was making millions of dollars. All right, but they didn't list it because only 700,000 of it was theoretically, you know, I'm not going to say taxpayer money because it wasn't, because taxpayers didn't pay that number, but
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be on a line item on a spreadsheet in a you know from a university. So how much you paying your coach? That's the number that's our max number that we are allowed to pay him. All right. And again, if the university pays more, if the state pays more than $50,000 to $75,000 to a coach these days, and these big time coaches, that's a mistake. Somebody screwed up, because they're paid for by, as you said, boosters. They're paid for by an outside collective now, which is what everybody's gone to because it's a legal way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's got to be line items, on the books, and so yeah, it's there. But to make it political is stupid, because again, if I'm a head coach and I want to go to LSU, and we already established that of all the jobs out there right now, LSU is far and away has the best opportunities. He just suddenly turned it on their head, because it's not where I would like to go. And I'm sure that, a lot of these guys are like, no, 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 no. How do you think Lane Kiffin would get along with the governor of Louisiana? That wouldn't even, forget Lane Kiffin, buddy. He's gone. That is never going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to hire Lane Kiffin as your head football coach, it's probably a better idea to not have your state governor go and call out his agent in his press conference as well, because he didn't name him. He didn't name Jimmy Sexton as he was talking about it,
Right.
but he might as well have just said, Jimmy Sexton's got us all in a chokehold right now, and he's got a real chokehold on the way all the coaches are done. That's what he was saying. He didn't say him by name, but that's what he said. He said, look at the way it's done. Look at who they're represented by. There's one guy who you're going after when you say that. It's Jimmy Sexton. He represents like a third of FBS head coaches or something
Right.
like that. It's insane.
And half the NFL.
Now, and what I'd say is, I'm not saying that he's necessarily wrong in the way that Jimmy Sexton has the ability to work the market.
Right.
What I am saying is that I can say it as a writer and somebody who has zero influence on that LSU head coaching search. I can say that Jimmy Sexton probably has a little too much power over the sport of college football right now.
Mm-hmm.
The governor of Louisiana can't say that, though. That's not. They're trying to hire a football coach. What are we doing?
It's like me saying I don't. I'm the governor of the state of Maryland. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll tell you right now, if if the Orioles deal with Scott, Boras, I'm never going. They're getting no money from us to fix a stadium or do whatever they want.
Yeah,
Well, guess what? Scott will be more than happy not to take your money.
yep.
He'll find it somewhere else.
Yeah, just absolutely blowing up the product that he's trying to sell, or at least it feels that way. Uh, so and then they'll come after Georgia's athletic director, Josh Brooks. I would
Mhm.
assume he's from the state of Louisiana. He's obviously done a great job at Georgia. That seems to be the leading guy. But uh, at
I
least
don't know
well,
that I don't know they'll get him because at the end of the day,
it is possible.
why would you leave Georgia to go to a place where you're not going to have the power?
Yep, that is 100% correct. That's yeah.
I mean,
It
you're basically telling me, or the governor of the state is telling me, that whoever he hires, what's that is basically his secretary.
Yep. Yeah. So what incentive do you give people to take it? He has the potential to take what is a top 5 job in college football and turn it into a top 15 job. Like it's a more attractive job than Florida and Penn State. But, Florida and Penn State's governor haven't been like, well, this is who's going to be in control. I'm going to have a big say over this. Not
Mhm.
saying that they don't have any influence, but they don't have the level of influence that Governor Landry is taking it upon himself to bestow himself with. So,
Well, I'll tell you real quick, a quick couple of politics has entered into sports all the time.
mhm,
Um, During his first terms, DeSantis had a couple of things he wanted to get, you know, pushed through on college and also dealing with the professional sports teams in the state. Will Weatherford, who now sits on the board at USF, but was at one point in time the speaker, of the House and in the state, and also, basically a confidant to the governors, went in and said, "Look, um, we get Super Bowls, we get all kinds of you know amazing sports and sports teams that want to come here, and events that want to come here. If you
mhm,
interject yourself into this, they're not going to want to come here anymore.
yeah,
Okay, so my suggestion to you, is, and remember that when DeSantis was going to go after the University of Florida for some, I forget what it was, but anyway, for whatever, and Florida State for whatever, um, he graduated from Yale.
yeah,
So, you know, that's not going to play well with the boosters at Florida or Florida State. So that told the governor, go to hell. So at this point in time, Weatherford went to the governor and said, you know what? I see what you're talking about, but, dude, this is not the way to do it. And to his credit, he let up. It doesn't seem that there's that kind of pushback right now, anyway, at LSU. I'm surprised James Carville, who is an LSU graduate, and every time I see him on television, he's either wearing an LSU hat or a T-shirt, um, is going nuts that you're ruining my football team.
mhm,
So I mean, there'll be pushback, but will it be enough to keep people? I right now believe that it's this dust up. If it continues for another couple weeks, forget LSU getting a top notch coach. It ain't gonna happen.
yeah. It's going to be really hard. Well, I mean,
Well, you also don't have an athletic director.
yeah. Well, and I'll throw this on top of it is if you know Governor Landry does have some kind of enough power to have this say in it, and he is insistent upon them sticking to the contract structure that he would like, they also will not be getting a head coach regardless of feud. So
No, you're right.
but they're not going to get a coach under the construct that he wants.
Hmm.
It's just not going to happen. Well,
Right.
I guess we should probably turn to football. Stop being angry at at football related things. I
Yeah.
uh
Go ahead.
I was going to say go down to Jacksonville, Florida, where we're actually saying goodbye for a little bit.
Yeah.
Over the next 2 years, Jacksonville will be building a new stadium, and the Georgia Florida world's largest outdoor cocktail party rivalry will be moving to Atlanta and Tampa. I think it is Atlanta first
Yeah.
in
It's
20.
Atlanta 27, 26. I'm sorry, and Tampa
Yeah,
27.
yep, Tampa 27. So head down
Their
Jacksonville.
their hope
Everybody's
is to
gonna.
get their hope is to get there back to Jacksonville by 28.
Yep. So the students of Georgia have already taken off. They will be enjoying Frat Beach, for the last time this weekend, at least for 2 years. So
Hmm.
if you're in those middling years as a student, it's tough. It stinks. But the game itself is Georgia's actually only 7.5 point favorite going down to Jacksonville, which I found to be a
Hmm.
little bit interesting considering Florida is a team that has just fired their head coach. They haven't had a fantastic season. All
No.
of those things are true. But the thing that I've been saying since day one of the season, and I'll keep beating the drum to it, is Florida has the talent to win. They had the talent to win all of the football games on their schedule.
Hmm.
Their offense, execution, whatever you want to blame it on, the talent's still there. Now, granted, they're facing a lot of injuries. Guys off the top of my head that I know are out. Um, I know Aiden Mizell's out. That's big in their receivers.
Hmm.
Vernell Brown's out. He's their leading receiver.
Hmm.
In terms of their defensive line, Caleb Banks is already listed as out. He's a big
Right.
piece of their defensive line. So they're struggling in terms of some of the injury front. But when it comes down to this game and the 7.5 point spread this is what Florida's coming out with. They're coming out with a lot of talent still on that roster. What's most likely to be a pretty new offense, all things considered,
Hmm.
and they've had 2 weeks to prepare. This is as much of a wild card that Kirby Smart and Georgia could have been tossed
Hmm.
coming out of this bye. And it's exactly what Kirby Smart probably doesn't want to see when he's looking down the road with a trip to Mississippi State next week and then
Hmm.
Texas coming to Athens the week after that. It's on paper probably not the toughest stretch, but in terms of scheduling dynamics, it's not going to be a fun stretch for Georgia these next 3 weeks.
No, and the wild card, that you talk about is we've said many times on the show that Florida's defense isn't bad.
No.
If they could fix the offense, they might be that might be the trick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you just pointed out, even though they've lost a couple of players, they still have a pretty potent offense there.
Yeah.
If the defense can keep the game close and the offense is better,
Mm-hmm.
then it's this has the potential of being a really close football game.
I,
And I'm sure. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the thing that would like the biggest wild card that scares me the most if
Hmm.
I'm a Georgia fan watching this game on Saturday is what DJ Lagway are you going to get? Because DJ Lagway for the majority of this year looked like a shell. Like the
Hmm.
guy that you saw at the end of the season last year versus the guy
Hmm.
that you've seen thus far throughout the season for Florida this year, two different players. Like
Hmm.
he looks rattled. He didn't look confident. He hasn't looked confident really at any point this season, if we're being quite honest.
Hmm.
Like even in the games they won, like when they beat Texas, man, he looked like he was still nervous. In that fourth quarter when they have a lead, he's
Hmm.
trying to throw out routes and he's like sailing them. So he's got. If you come out there and you get the confident, like feeling good version of DJ Lagway, it can be a problem because Kirby Smart said it in his press conference. He said Two's a big dude. You got to be able to finish on him and bring him down. So it's and it goes for more than just Lagway too. Jaden Baugh in the backfield has a fantastic center of gravity. Like he is so balanced when he runs. He's really hard to bring down. So like they
Hmm.
have these guys, and if you struggle tackling on the outside, which Georgia has at times this year, like their defense has been the issue, then these guys can provide you problems, and they're going to provide Georgia problems just because of how rough their back end of the defense has been. Like they haven't been some fantastic unit that's 100%. So again, in the first half, Georgia's going to have to come out and they're going to have to match scores, most likely, for a majority of the first half. And then that second half, same script as always. Defense will probably settle in and you can create a gap. But you got to be able to it feels weird saying it, but Georgia has to be able to hang with Florida for the entirety of the first half of this football game.
Well, the guy, by the way, who's going to be coaching them is 54-year-old Billy Gonzalez. And, one of the things, and it goes either way, but one of the things you talked about DJ, maybe, I don't know this to be fact, but it's interesting sometimes, maybe Billy was DJ's problem.
Yeah.
And maybe with new coach Gonzalez there saying, just take a breath. Don't worry. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to beat on you. We're not going to beat on you. We're here to play Georgia. And, one DJ Langway beating Georgia, that would be something that would make his year.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it was Florida fans' favorite hypothetical last season.
Mm-hmm.
What if Lagway stayed in the whole game? They love that one. So he is a difference maker.
Yep, and it's it's one of those things where you sit back and say, I don't know what's going to happen when you have an interim coach, but some of these interim coaches have done pretty well when the other coaches have gone. I mean, we just talked about it at UCLA.
Yep.
So you never know, and but going to Jacksonville down there and on the St. Johns River, and I hope everybody has a good time tomorrow. 3 o'clock. It's 3:30 on ESPN, and you'll have a chance to watch it, unless, of course, you're involved with the folks at YouTube TV. They may not be able to bring it to you. We have some games tonight. We'll just hit on some of them. You tell me what you think. Memphis, after their win last week over USF, is going to Houston to play Rice. Rice hasn't been good, no doubt. But sometimes you get kind of a hangover game. You figure, all right, well, we beat USF last week. Now let's go down to Rice and just we're not going to have to turn out too much to get that done.
Yeah,
and it can be a bad one in that regard.
Yeah, Jim, I'll give you a fun little tidbit that no one's going to care about. But Rice, actually, in the heat of COVID, I went back and I started playing NCAA 2014, and Rice was the team that I chose to build my dynasty. So I won like 12 national championships with Rice in NCAA 14. No, but Memphis should roll here. The spot where you're getting in trouble here is it was a really good win for Memphis last week. But now you're going on the road in a short week. Spread's 13.5. Spread means nothing. If you don't come prepared, especially in the day and age of college, everybody talks about the transfer portal and how it's leveled the playing field, and that has played a significant factor. But a much less talked about is the amount of time, actual game time in games. When they made the switch to the running clock and the 2-minute timeouts, it significantly decreased the amount of possessions per game. It just does. Like when you have a typical back and forth in terms of possessions, I'm not talking about a high turnover game or something like that. Your numbers of possessions, if I remember, I think it was College Football Nerds that did a really good piece on it. But I think you've taken away somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 possessions a game from each offense.
Yeah.
So you've taken away a significant amount of possessions. So when you shorten the game like that, it can be really easy to find yourself in these upset scenarios. So Memphis has to be careful, and they have to make sure they're firing early, because if they get behind in this game and it travels into the second half and they're still kind of at the scoreboard looking up, that game can get real short real quick on Memphis.
You know, there's a game that that's tonight that is going to be kind of interesting. North Carolina's taking on Syracuse. That's 7:30 on ESPN. By the way, at 7 p.m. on the Deuce is where you can find Memphis and Rice. Uh, I read a story where there's going to be approximately 1,000 fans. I'm sorry, 5,000 fans from Buffalo who are going to Syracuse, who are Bills fans, to just give Belichick nothing but grief all night long.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I'm not so sure that this is, what's going to happen, but the Carrier Dome is going to be very loud tonight. I'm sorry, yeah, tonight with Buffalo Bills fans just taunting Bill Belichick.
Yeah. I actually feel this is I'm about to give you a little spiel here on something that's very confusing. I'm as far out on the North Carolina football program and the state that it's in right now as I could
Mm-hmm.
possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that, and I can acknowledge they've played a lot closer games over the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
This is a spot here where I love Fran Brown and I love Syracuse, but
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina is playing better, and Syracuse's defense is god awful. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is genuinely one of the worst defenses I've ever watched. It's really bad, and I love Fran Brown, and God bless his family. If he really sticks to the no showering until we win thing, it's been a stinky year in the Brown household
Mm-hmm.
because they're 3-5, and he only showers after a win. So that's a problem for them. I feel like it might be another stinky week. I think North Carolina is going to win this football game. They've been a lot better over the last couple of weeks, and when you mix that with really giving Bill and Steve Belichick the time that they need to prepare for this Syracuse backup quarterback, because now there's enough film out there on the backup now. They know how to prepare for him. I think Syracuse is going to have a pretty hard time moving the football against a former NFL defensive coordinator
Mm-hmm.
and, well, quite frankly, his son, when they've been able to prepare, and a guy who made his living off of making rookie quarterbacks and just beating rookie quarterbacks. Like, if it was a rookie, if they were playing New England while Bill Belichick was a head coach, that rookie is losing 9 times out of 10. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he had such a high winning percentage. I think you're going to get a similar case tonight in Syracuse.
That'll be interesting. It definitely will be interesting. Um, all right, let's. We got a few to fly through for tomorrow. Um, let's go to at noon. Vandy goes to Austin to take on Texas, number 9, Vanderbilt, number 20, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Texas is one ugly at home,
Yeah.
and they could very well give Vanderbilt grief.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I would assume not, but I would assume that Arch Manning is playing. I'm assuming he's not sitting out.
Nice plan.
He started the week in concussion protocol. I didn't actually really see or hear anything else on that.
Mhm.
So Arch Manning's going. He played really well against Mississippi State. I will say my Texas losing 3 games in a row died a valiant death in Starkville, Mississippi.
Right.
But I, I said it a week ago. I'm going to stick to it. I still don't think Texas wins this football game.
Hmm.
It is a case where it could be one of the two. Texas could have found their rhythm. They could have
Hmm.
found their groove. Arch Manning could be feeling much better, feeling like he's playing himself, or they could have just survived another week waiting for delaying the inevitable, which I think is what they did. And
Hmm.
Vanderbilt's played fantastic football this year. They have earned their top 10 ranking. And I think they go on the road and they get a really big win in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, that would be a big win. Speaking of big wins, Penn State. By
Oh,
the way, that game, Vanderbilt, Texas, ABC tomorrow. Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy. Penn State, big noon. Gus Johnson, Joe Klatt, Fox. Is There's something in me that feels that, you know what, Penn State might just accidentally beat Ohio State on the year that they fired James Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't this be a Ryan Day loss? Like just the way Ryan Day, like some of the games they've lost, it's just like, man, like wait, how like last year,
Yeah,
how did they lose? How did that team lose to
right,
Michigan? It
right,
doesn't make any sense. This is going to be one of those. If it happens, it makes no sense.
right.
Talk about the interim dynamic. It's tough. They're going on the road to the horseshoe. Apparently, Ohio State's trying to black it out. I don't know if this is their get back at Penn State's whiteout. Maybe it's a sorry attempt to copy,
I think
but
it's a sorry attempt to copy. Yes.
but yeah. I mean, Penn State's got a backup quarterback. They still haven't gotten. They played better against Iowa after they fired James Franklin, but they didn't play
Mhm,
great. Yeah, their offense played a little better, but you still gave up 25 to Iowa.
mhm,
Um, and Julian Sands, a guy who since the Texas game has 4 300-yard passing games.
mhm.
Last week he was at 393, so he was nudging up there close to 400. Like the Ohio State offense has found a little bit of a rhythm and a groove, and this should just be business as usual for Ohio State. That's what it
Mhm.
should be. But I also kind of have a weird feeling about this game, and I don't think I'm going to pick Penn State to win by any measure.
Right.
But I think they're going to keep it close. I think they're going to keep it oddly close. A little bit more uncomfortable than the home crowd probably would like.
Mhm. And there you go. Here's a game that in the 1 o'clock um, window that I think might be entertaining because it's important to both teams. Arizona State and Iowa State on TNT.
Yeah, Arizona State got the bad news. I think it was today. Sam Levitt's out for the rest of the year with an injury. I
Yeah.
don't remember what injury that is. I think for Arizona State, while it's a big these are you can consider it a big game. Both of them are out of the Big 12 race in terms of
Right.
that. So that's none. I think in terms of just head coaching and optics, it would probably look a little worse if Matt Campbell lost this game to Arizona State than if Kenny
Mhm.
Dillingham lost to Iowa State. Going on the road without your starting quarterback. If you win that game, then you kind of honestly feel like you climbed a mountain and came out a winner there. So I think Iowa State should win that football game.
Mhm.
It started at 3.5. The spread's now to 7.5. I would
Right.
assume that's with the Levitt news. So
Mhm.
that kind of tells you what odds makers are thinking on Arizona State with and without Sam Levitt.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. Notre Dame's playing at Boston College and their version of the Holy War. That's 3:30 up in Chestnut Hill, and I don't see any reason why Notre Dame shouldn't win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Boston College has shown nothing much this season so far, um, and so it's going to be a little tough for them. So we'll see. Anyway, let me scrolling down. We already mentioned Florida and Georgia at the 3:30 window. I'm looking at any other game in the 3:30 window that is of interest. I can't find anything that it piques the interest. So let's move to the evening. South Carolina, Ole Miss. Uh,
That's an interesting one because Ole Miss is now like I wonder if there's a sense of relief in that Ole Miss building. When they lost to Georgia, they had to go
uh-huh.
back on the road to Oklahoma
Right.
and beating Oklahoma at Oklahoma. Say what you will about the health of John Mateer, I still don't think he's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good win. It's a really hard win that they had to go and get in Norman. Have you lulled yourself into a sense of security here for Ole Miss? Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you have this thing in the bag? Because I can tell you they did that last year. They went on
Right.
the road to Florida and they got beat. And they got beat because they didn't play to the level that Ole Miss team showed they could play at week in, week out. They lost because they were not a consistent football team. This Ole Miss football team has been much more consistent this year with a lot more outside noise in terms of where their head coach may be going next. They've remained focused. And I think, honestly, as tough of a spot as it may have been to remain focused last week, I think this spot is so much more difficult because you're at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lesser opponent. You're favored by double digits. Just go out there and win the football game. It should just be as easy as just walking out there and winning. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
You're facing Lenore Sellers. gave Alabama everything they could handle last week.
Mhm.
And if you don't think that's the message that Lane Kiffin's preaching to his team this week, then you're insane. Because that's exactly what I'm showing them. Like, hey, this Alabama team has been rolling, and they got everything they could handle in Columbia, South Carolina last week. I know we're not going to Columbia, but they're coming here, and that
Right.
quarterback still is a problem, and so is number 6 on the defense.
Right.
So
So pay
they've got
attention.
their work cut out for them.
Yeah. Probably the game of the day from a matchup standpoint. 18 Oklahoma, 14 Tennessee playing in Knoxville, 7:30 on ABC. Fowler and Herb Street on that one.
Yeah, this is the most the game where you're really going to kind of understand who a program is, because Tennessee's played 8 football games, and I still don't feel like I fully understand who Tennessee is. They've lost to Georgia in overtime, and they lost to Alabama on the road by 14. 2 not horrible losses. Obviously you want to come out on the side of those. Not horrible losses. But outside of that, they've beaten no one. Like, they've gotten the worst of the worst in the SEC, and they've beaten them. And they've gotten some G5 FBS opponents. Like, they have not played a soul outside of the 2 games that they've lost. You're getting a little more of a middle matchup here. Oklahoma is much more of a team that you would consider on par with Tennessee, I guess.
Right.
In terms of the other 2 games that you look at, and at least in terms of brand power, you say, well, of course Georgia and Alabama beat Tennessee. That's the way it's been going. So if you're Tennessee, I want to see you against somebody with a pulse that isn't Georgia or Alabama. Is essentially what you're trying to find out this week. How real are you outside of those 2 games?
Well, the other thing is Oklahoma has to prove something. And I think that's something that, that they really, they need this. Both these teams need this game. And we'll see, like you say, what Tennessee's like, but we're also going to see what Oklahoma's like, because they've been on and off as well. They've been hot and cold. So it'll be primetime 7:30 on ABC, Fowler and Curb Street. Here's an interesting one. It's going to be on NBC. It's going to be 7:30. SC going to Nebraska. Now, Matt Rule just got a huge contract thanks to Jimmy Sexton. And the rumors that he was headed to Penn State. He's got a huge extension at Nebraska. SC needs this game. And we'll see. I mean, in theory, SC should win this game, but we'll see.
Well, what's it called? I will preface, and if I remember correctly, the language in this one is much different compared to what he signed at Baylor. But he signed a contract extension at Baylor in what was it, 2019 or 2018?
2018. Because Dave Miranda took over. Not long after that.
Yeah, and he and then he took the Carolina job 4 months after he signed that extension.
Right.
So just because Matt Rule signs an extension doesn't mean anything's done necessarily. But I think, if I remember correctly, the way that his extension goes is that if he were to take another head coaching job this season, his buyout is $15 million for just this year. So it's a pretty steep number that will probably steer some schools away, or would steer Penn State clear of probably hiring him. In terms of the football game itself, USC goes on the road. I'm still not a massive fan of what USC is. This is a game that Nebraska has lost time and time again, over the past, whatever it is, decade, really. So, this would be like I think everybody around Nebraska football and really Nebraska athletics would almost like get like a sigh of relief if they won this game. Like, we just signed him to the extension, and then he went out and he beat USC. He wasn't favored to beat USC. I know it was at home, but they were ranked, not favored. It's just a good win and makes you feel good about the signing you just made and the direction of your program and where he's taking them.
Yeah. Let's close out the night. For those of you who like late night football, number 17, Cincinnati, number 24, Utah. The game's being played. Salt Lake City, Dave Pasch, Dusty Dvorak on the call. This is this is your basic even Big 12 game. I mean, I don't think I mean Cincinnati's decent, but I like Utah at home.
Yeah, Utah is a massive favorite in this game.
Really?
Like confusingly massive. They're favored by 10.5 points. The line opened at 7.5. It's up to 10.5 in favor of Utah.
So they betted
Um,
it up.
yeah, I really wonder if this has more to do with Cincinnati and their overall schedule. Because, you look at the team Cincinnati played, it's not been the top of the Big 12 by any measure.
Mm-hmm.
Their only loss was Nebraska at the start of the year. But in terms of who they played in conference play, it's been Kansas. Kansas hasn't been great.
Right.
Iowa State, who's now 5-3, they've faltered.
Right.
UCF, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. Those are the Big 12 teams they beat. It's not the top half of the Big 12 by any measure. Now they're facing the top half of the Big 12, and they will over the next couple of weeks. They get Utah this week, BYU in a couple, and TCU to end the year. So they're facing the stiffer part of their schedule on the back end. But I think it's indicative of what Kyle Whittingham has built at Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's built at Utah is not only a really good program, but a really good atmosphere. Going on the road, playing a lot later than you're used to playing for Cincinnati matters this week.
Mm-hmm.
And Utah is one of the better environments in the Big 12, if not the best environment in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. What they do in Utah is really good. So it's a tough matchup. I don't know if I feel 10.5 points worth of differential in these two teams, just because there is something to be said for just playing good, sound winning football, which Cincinnati has done every week with the exception of week 1.
Yeah, I've always liked Kyle Whittingham. I've always thought that, he gets the most out of his players. And playing at home in front of a very loud and very boisterous crowd at Utah. I mean, the stadium by our standards, meaning SEC standards, isn't a big stadium. It's 50,000 seats, but they're right on top of the players. And that mountain is right over, on the back side of it. So it's a beautiful setting. It's Salt Lake. And you've got, a lot of people forget you got the elevation too.
Yeah.
So, they might be, Cincinnati in the second half might be sucking oxygen because I'm not sure that they played at elevation and it does make a difference. But, I think Utah wins this in a close one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 quick things to talk about. One of them is is what's going on tonight, Game 6 of the World Series. Amazing Game 5 that we saw the other night, and we didn't get a chance to chat about it. But Game 6 tonight, and if necessary, the series ends tomorrow. So does it end tonight or does it end tomorrow?
I think it ends tonight. I think that the Blue Jays' ability, the way they bounced back after that Game 3, they bounced back and they took the next 2 in LA.
Right.
That it's done so much for them as a team. They got better when George Springer went out of the lineup. It's insane to say, and I will say, I get it. I get where Blake Snell's coming from, but when you get up after a loss in which you gave up 5 runs, it doesn't always bode well for you to get up there and say they got lucky, which is what he cited. And, he wasn't completely wrong in his argument. But in the World Series, after your starting pitcher just gave up 5 runs, you don't exactly want to hear the words, well, they got lucky, come out of your starting pitcher's mouth. Right. So I think I do have some questions about how that LA clubhouse is feeling, and the clubhouse may not matter because they got Yoshinobu Yamamoto coming up. And if he gives them the same performance that he gave them in Game 2, then it's not going to matter what their clubhouse is like. They'll scratch across 2 runs and they'll win this game. But I expect Kevin Gausman to be much better than he was in Game 2 as well. So for that reason, and for the reason of I think Gausman's going to be better, and quite frankly, the Blue Jays lineup has just out-hit them in all of these games, seemingly, I would pick the series to end this evening.
Well, there you go. So be interesting. By the way, a quick thing that just kept popping past the us on here. Dan Lanning said there is absolutely zero chance that he is going to be the next coach of LSU. He's staying at Oregon. He likes Oregon, and he goes, if I were ever to leave, it wouldn't be for LSU.
Yep.
There you go. Pretty strong words from that standpoint. If you are a fan of horse racing, come back at 3:00 and check out Fred York and the gang. They're going to be talking about the Saturday's Breeders' Cup, and that's going to be an entertaining. It's always a good. If you're a horse racing fan, it's always good. Del Mar is a beautiful race course. It's a beautiful track out in between Orange County and San Diego, so it's going to be a nice evening out there. So we'll get a chance to see that. So there's that's going on. So all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. But for Matt and I, Matt, one last thing. Anything that we left on the table that you didn't get a chance to chat about?
Yeah, I just looked at it. I actually didn't have it prepared. It's just something I recognized while I was scrolling through the slate. The top of the ACC goes on the road this weekend. All of them. Miami's at SMU, Louisville is at Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech is at NC State. You want to talk people love chaos. You want to talk chaos. The top of the ACC feels very clear right now. You've got these teams. Georgia Tech's undefeated. Miami's got their one loss. Louisville's got their one loss. They are the top of the ACC right now. None of the places they're going are guaranteed wins for these people. Georgia Tech's favored by 4.5. I think Louisville's got 10.5, and I think Miami's favored by 11.5. None of these games are shoe-ins. You could see some chaos in the Atlantic Coastal Conference this weekend, much to the liking of what typically happens year in and year out in the Big 12.
Who goes to Virginia Tech?
Louisville.
Oh, okay. Louisville's had all kinds of grief there in the past. But they don't have. They're an interim coach as well. So
also a strange flavor of Penn State in that Louisville Virginia Tech matchup. Brent Pry was the former Penn State DC, and now there's rumblings that James Franklin's going to get the head job there. Also, one of the betting favorites to land the Penn State job, current Louisville head coach Jeff Brom.
Yeah, Jeff Brom has been linked to a bunch of opportunities. It would be a good fit for Jeff to go to from Louisville to Penn State. It would be a good opportunity for him, and he's proven it at Louisville that he can recruit and he can put together a team. So nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
There you go. All right. Well, everybody, for Matthew, I'm Jim. We will see you back here on Monday. And Monday, we're going back to our normal time of 3:00. And again, special programming today, and it's on the Breeders' Cup. So have a wonderful weekend, and we will be checking back with you on Monday. And we didn't get a chance to talk about the NFL, but quite frankly, we will talk about it on Monday. Okay, hang with us. We'll get there by Monday. Too much college football to talk about this week. All right, buddies. Take care. Bye-bye.